Hey everyone, welcome to Old Ass Movie Reviews and the Neverworld podcast crossover episode. As some of you may have found out, Dave and I not only review movies, we also have a separate podcast called Neverworld Podcast, where we discuss things of strange and unknown origin, aliens, ghosts, ETs, demons, angels, pyramids, ancient aliens, you name it. So we decided anything weird and unexplained. Skunk apes. Shout out Shannon. Okay, so
Shannon the skunk ape.
Yes. Anyway, today we are going to do a movie that crosses both areas of our podcast. This is a documentary from a few years ago called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, done by Dr. Stephen Greer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Stephen Greer.
And we wanted to talk about this because we talk movies and we talk subject matter. Dave had been recommending this movie to me for a long time. And it's hard for me sometimes to sit down and watch a documentary on UFOs and aliens. Because there's so much out there. There's so much out there. What I'm going to get this out of the...
Through.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what I wanted to say was, I was blown away very quickly by the sheer amount of media files that this documentary presents, of all these photographs, all these videos. I've seen several of these before. However, man, I hadn't seen the mother lode like this ever.
And it's the story behind each one of these kind of things. It's like, this is what they said was BS, and this is why it's not BS. You know, that's this guy's something else. This guy's the real deal, I think.
Now let me back up, and we'll talk a little bit about what this documentary is. It talks about, what different close encounters are, and I honestly forget the way
close
I think
encounters. I'm sorry, I was going to say Close Encounters of the First Kind is just a visual. You see something. It's kind of like a UFO spotting. Close Encounters of the Second Kind, I think, is where there's an indention or...
Oh, that's right, where there's like a crop circle or proof that something landed.
Something's burned out, like from an exhaust, something's burned out. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is when you are physically have interaction of some sort with the aliens. So the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind is kind of wrong. It should have been called Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, which is when you are either taken aboard their ship or you go with them.
It was a little bit of both in that movie, because the third kind is, and it was really neat for them to show who their advisor was on that movie, was somebody who worked with the government and was a Project Blue Book or something.
Project Blue Book. He was in charge of Project Blue Book.
Yeah. So what we were seeing, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, is more of a documentary than an actual movie. Pretty wild, folks.
And I've read and I have seen other documentaries that talk about that movie specifically, and they basically say that that's happened. The government's denied it, but something
I'm sure
similar to that has happened. Now, whether they were aliens from outer space, aliens from another dimension, aliens from wherever else you could get an alien from, I don't know, is hit or miss. I couldn't tell you. But that guy did come along with not George Lucas, but Steven Spielberg, and he was their advisor on how the government reacts and how the government would do things. Hence the chemical spill there. And suddenly you have chemical spills in certain parts of the country, and they're trying to get people moved and this and that. And it's like, okay, what's going on? Oh, all of a sudden, balloons. No, they're not balloons. They're UFOs. No, they're not this. It's like, they can't figure out what lie they want to tell anymore.
Well, and that's just it. And that's one of the things about this document. And the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is when we initiate contact. Is that correct? Yeah.
I think it's when you meet, when you actually, like I want to say on a political level, like, hi, friend, shake hands. What's going on, buddy? Kind of kind of meat.
Right.
I will double
Yeah,
check
go ahead.
that, but you go ahead and keep talking.
Right. So what this movie does is explore Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and Dr. Stephen Greer and many others have developed a
Hmm.
way and a system that they believe allows them to contact extraterrestrials. Um, I found the presentation of this to be pretty convincing.
Yeah.
And the proof that they've shown. And all you got to do is look, and this is one of the things that they go into quite a bit is you've got the CIA and all the MK Ultra programs, the remote viewing, psychics. One of the most fascinating things about this documentary, I thought, was they're setting up a random number generators and
Hmm.
showing
That.
that can be manipulated by thought and feelings. And when they showed what happened on the morning of 9/11 to
Hmm.
all of these generators based on the energy of people on Earth and the vibrations was like, it was pretty wild to me.
Yeah.
Pretty damn convincing there that wow. And this is where this documentary is interesting because I sat down to watch it thinking I'm going to watch all about aliens. And yes,
Hmm.
you do, but this documentary has a much greater message for us, and you could argue that this documentary is basically another version of The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And yeah, that's a good call.
and
But
that's what
it's
I felt
true.
when I watched it. Is get your stuff together, people. Stop the wars. Stop hating everybody. Stop all of this, and we can have a better place. And there's beings that are willing to help us get to that spot. All we have to do is ask and show that we're ready.
Right.
And I don't have a lot of faith. However, what this documentary shows is we only need 1% of the population to make a major change. And I buy that, man.
And
It is a feel good movie in that, and I'll take it hook, line, and sinker. I'm there, man.
it started at one point for me, and like Scott said, this is a documentary that Greer put together and his people had put together, and he talks about all the disinformation that the federal government, not just our government, but
All
world
worldwide.
government
Oh, he
is
talks a lot
putting
about
out.
royal
Like,
families, and yeah,
yeah, exactly. And the really creepy thing is that most governments that think they're running their government aren't. And if anybody was paying attention for the last few years, you found out just how much we ain't running shit in this country. And then
mm-hmm,
you found out how much nobody's running anything up to our northern cousins and our
mm-hmm,
southern cousins
mm-hmm,
and anywhere else in the world. The Western world went to shit in a handbag real quick. This guy covers a lot of the stuff that now this is
mm-hmm.
about a year or so, 2 years before all this actually happened, is
Yeah,
when this was filmed. So when I watched it, it was just as this stuff was starting to peak.
right.
And I watched it and I was like, okay, what's next? Boom. If you watch this, it's a domino effect.
Well,
One thing happens, another thing
right.
happens. Now all of a sudden, UFOs are being spotted,
Well,
just like he says will happen in this show. I mean, it is almost
yeah.
verbatim. It's like somebody read this or looked at this and went, "We're going to do that. That looks like
What
it could work."
what I find interesting is, and we're on Twitter as Neverworld Podcast and Old Ass
Mhm.
Movies, so please join us and converse with us. But one of the things I notice over there in the UFO community is it seems like it's ramping up the debunkers, the people who are coming
Right,
out with what I consider misinformation. Because
right,
I
right.
mean, I'm sorry, yeah, you may be a smart person, but you're trying to discredit 5 or 6 people with multiple PhDs, worked in multiple levels of our government and different world governments, and what they're flakes. But yeah, you, Mister, in your basement, you know it all because you
Right.
deconstructed a YouTube video. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people on a payroll for misinformation to keep
Well,
us
oh
from
yeah.
looking at it.
Well, the problem is there's a guy in there. I forgot his first name, but his last name is Doty.
Hmm.
Now, Doty used to work for the government, supposedly, um, and he I think they did find out he did work for the government. I think he worked for the Air Force at one point, and all of a sudden he turned around and started coming out to the UFO community, where his job in the Air Force was to debunk and basically make people look bad.
Hmm.
So when I hear anything come out of that guy's mouth, I'm thinking there's maybe 10% of whatever you're saying is true and everything else is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you listen too closely to him, it all sounds too good to be true. And there's too many people in the UFO community that are ready to glom onto that.
Mm-hmm.
And I take everything that man
You should,
says with a grain of salt,
and we should with
because
everybody.
he's been, well, yeah, this guy's gotten caught a few times
Oh
though,
yeah.
really, really being wrong and lying. And he always comes out going, "Oh no, I was still working for him then." Well,
You can only
really?
use that for so long.
When are you gonna stop working for him?
Well, that's
You know,
just it.
kind
He
of thing.
probably still is because
Yeah,
anything.
exactly. Well, that's what I mean. That's so when there's people like I love Travis Taylor. I love Travis Taylor. Shoot a rocket at it. But he's been in the government his entire career. He's been paid by our federal government his entire
to
career.
investigate UFOs. So yeah.
He may have whose master is he serving at this point? I don't know. I'd like to think that he's going to do the right thing because he seems like a pretty up and up guy.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that he's going to do the right thing no matter what.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's
who
hard.
knows?
It's really hard because this is fantastical thinking, and as we start to talk a
Yeah.
little deeper in this, it does border on metaphysical and
Yeah.
Eastern philosophies and stuff, and I find it very compelling because this is something I have always thought that we could telepathically communicate
Right.
with other beings. For some reason that's always just been in my head. It's like I know I can do it. I just how? Hey, it's like I'll go out and look at the sky. It's like, hey, come get me. And this brings me to one of the things that is true. Is I forget who it was who made claims that they ran programs within the government to abduct people, to scare people, to keep it going, and as long as the public is afraid, as long as they're afraid and scared of it, as long as you're afraid of anything, folks, you're easily manipulated. Right. So bottom line, no matter whatever the government wants to sell you it's easy for you to take if you're fearful of it. So,
and I mean, just look at what they push every time somebody gets hurt by a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Fear. They push fear. That's what every regime does. And I call them regimes because they're mean. But
fear's a hell of a weapon, man.
This particular show, this documentary, points out a lot of that kind of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that have been disappeared for not allowing themselves to think like that, or not falling for it and telling others not to fall for it. Greer, I don't know why he's still alive, but he does strike me as a real deal. And I think the only reason he's still alive is because he's had way too many eyes on him since he started doing this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's developed something that is getting results. And the thing is, one of the things that he really pushes in is true. Mm-hmm. When people get together for a common cause, we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about these regimes. We can change that, but we have to change ourselves. And that's the hardest part. And, it almost sounds like wishful thinking. Let's just make sure we positive, but it's not so much positive. It's trying to attune yourself to a higher vibration, one of love and not fear, and just embracing a future that we can all enjoy instead of all of this. Yeah. God would just destroy everything we touch and each other. And it's got to stop. And I think that's the underlying message of this. Yeah,
it's easier to destroy something than to build something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easier to destroy something than to fix and repair something. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
There is a point in this show where, if you're watching it, and like I said, he does point out a lot of conspiracy type stuff that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it with an open mind and you look at what's been happening in the last few years, you will instantaneously grasp what he's talking about.
Yeah, you can
And I
see it.
say that because now you'd watch it and go, oh, well, he's just talking about what happened. It hadn't happened yet
Yeah.
when they filmed this. He literally said, this is what world governments are going to do. And then they're going to do this. And then they're going to do this. And then you're going to have one world government.
Mm.
They're on about number 3 right now.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, it seems like a whole lot of people are waking up around the world,
Yeah,
not
they
just
are.
in this country.
They are.
But like Canada was the first one to stand up and go, hey, no, no more of this shit. And then like the Australians really did march a lot more than they let television see. So good for you, Australia. New Zealand, they're on lockdown. They're controlled by China or whatever the fuck is controlling them. I don't know what's going on there. And the continent of Africa, 2 thumbs up, because you didn't let any Western European country come in there and fuck with you guys. Good going. But he talks about not allowing any countries to do this.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are starting to wake up now, a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think we're on the clock as a world to beat the bad guys to the punch. It's a race to who's going to get to the finish line first. I do think if the bad guys, and I'm just using that term loosely,
Mm-hmm.
if they get to the finish line first, they're not going to stay winners for very long.
No.
I would say maybe less than a year.
Yeah.
They may control everything. They may do what they want to do and go, look, we're in control. Ha ha ha. But humanity, I think, will fall back on, no, you're not in control of anything because we're not going to allow it. And that kind of leads into a little bit more of a nuance of what happens after that.
Yeah.
It won't be pretty. I'm hoping good guys beat everybody to the finish line, and people go to jail for all the crap that they've been doing for the last 30 years.
And that's
I
one
think
of the
it's not. It will end well. It does. I mean, I read the book. I know how it ends.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and that's what this documentary proposes is, let me back up just a little bit. So what Dr. Greer has come up with is using a series of meditations and practices to, his belief is that the aliens that we see can communicate telepathically. And one of the things I found very compelling is just they're on that energy level that can phase in and out. So they're not traveling across the galaxy. They're right here.
Not as we know it.
Not as we know it, because
right.
They probably don't see time the way we do. They're everywhere all at once, probably, because it's the way it is. And then they can communicate through that. One of the things that I thought was really neat was showing what looked like auras around people when they were meditating at these events. The CE5 is the process that I just started reading about because I think it's amazing, and I'm gonna give it a shot. As soon as it warms up a little bit.
Yes.
I think it would be amazing. But what they showed at these events was people would go through these steps for communication, and things would start happening. Their meters would go crazy. They would see things. How about the dude that had his hearing fixed?
He'd been deaf or almost completely deaf his whole life.
Yeah, he wore hearing aids, and he didn't even need them after. He just asked one of the beings, "Can you help me with my ears?" And they did.
He had done the meditation.
And
I didn't understand. I think did he meet the being? Did the being actually show up to him?
It actually showed up, and they actually have a picture. They have a picture of something next to the guy.
Yeah, that's a weird picture too.
It is a weird picture.
Yeah, that was very interesting because everybody was astounded. Anybody who knew this guy for any length of time knew he couldn't hear, knew he was deaf, and then all of a sudden he doesn't have his hearing aids anymore. The doctors look in his ear and they're like, "Well,
your hearing's perfect."
Well, I can't explain it. How crazy is that? And it's because the guy didn't really want anything. They were like, "Well, is there anything we can do for you?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." And he's like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe you can." I'm deaf. I can't hear anything. No, you'll be fine. Kind of attitude. at one point, in talking about the metaphysical and the
Mhm.
meditation and stuff, that part, now this is a failure to me. When it got to that point and they were talking about that, for about the first 5 or 10 minutes of them talking about that, I was like, oh Lord, here we go. This is just going to go crazy now. Now I'm just going to lose all faith in this show. This was me. This is what was going on in my head. I'm watching this. I'm like, this is insane. Oh, hippie talk. I don't need hippie talk and incense burning. If I want to do that to meditate, I'll relax. But then I finished watching the whole thing. He got to a point where I don't know who said what or when it was said or what exactly it was that was said, but something clicked in my head where I was like, shoot, that'll probably work.
Yeah.
That sounds like it
I
could
felt the same way,
absolutely work.
Dave.
No problem. Okay, so it wasn't just me because
I thought, where are
anybody
we
who knows
going?
me
Where
knows
are
I'm
we
not.
going? And I
Yeah,
left that and I was going to go
yeah,
burn some
that's
incense and sing Kumbaya and meditate
yeah.
and
I'm
dance
waiting
naked
for
under the
somebody to break
moonlight. I
out
don't
the
know what was going
guitar
to
and
happen. Yeah.
start singing "Bare Naked Ladies," you know.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
And I'm
what in
like,
the hell?
oh,
Yeah.
this is where are we going with this, guys? Where are we
And
going? And then all
I'm
of a sudden,
fine. I jumped in with it. You know, it's
it
like,
all
okay, I see it.
it all started making sense. I'm like, well,
Hmm.
fudge, with all the stuff that we've watched recently, plus all the stuff I've watched before this. I'm like, that all makes sense.
You know, I'm
And
gonna take something from this that isn't even alien related. Let's just take all the
okay,
aliens out of it. If you
all right,
just go on what he was saying, it basically boils down, if we want to create a better place for us and everyone else, we need to be the change we want to see. Bottom line. And
yeah, yeah,
that's so if you take anything away from us, take that away. But
yeah.
I do believe in the alien aspect of it. I do believe there's so much out there that we just don't know and has been with so much misinformation and obfuscation from the governments. It's, we have to find our
And
way.
he makes a good point about that, about the governments and the fear tactics and this
Oh,
and
yeah.
that. And he talks about the one of the big things, and this is kind of what I was beating around the bush of earlier. The big event that's going to try and make one world government is governments around the world will get together and say we are being invaded by aliens. It's all going to be bullshit. Sorry, it's
Oh,
all going to be BS.
I've got lots of editing.
Okay. Have I already done that? Have I already swore like 500 times in this?
At least 6 or 7, but that's all right. Be on the
Really?
lookout for the
Oh, I
clucks.
was trying so good.
Yeah, well, go on.
I was
You
trying.
can stop now. Would be
Um,
awesome.
It'd be really nice if you stopped swearing, Dave.
Yeah, just
Uh,
this once.
just,
Just this once. Scott gets tired of putting chicken noises in.
forgot what I was talking about.
I call it clucks for fucks. Wait, now I have to edit that.
Now you got to add one. So I don't mind. Oh, anyway, he talks about
Or this may
in this
just go up as our
documentary.
first R-rated Neverworld podcast. I think that's what's going to happen.
Might
So
have
anyway,
to be, man. It might have to be
it
because
may
it is
have
a
to be.
mix of
It is a mix,
the
so
show, which
it's going to
I
be.
do recommend. I forgot what I was saying. Fudge.
Yeah. So no, like
Oh,
you,
I
I thought.
remember.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Oh, I was just gonna say while you were thinking of that, like you, I thought the same way. When we got to this, I was like, "Oh, where are we going with this bull crap? Come on, give me
right,
the." It's like, "Oh, wait, okay, all right,
right.
I hear you. All right,
That,
I'm
that's
good."
kind of where I was thinking, like, oh, I see what you're doing. You got me.
Hmm.
But in this documentary, it just talks about how the governments have been manipulating everything to do with aliens,
Hmm.
everything to do with UFO encounters, everything to do with anything, anything. They don't care what they're as long as they have control, they don't care.
Hmm.
So the big thing is going to be alien attack. You're probably going to blow up a couple of cities. I'm assuming they don't say that straight out in this show,
Yeah, you know what's gonna happen.
but they're going to kill a whole lot of innocent people for no reason at all. Blame it on aliens. Try to make a one world government. But the problem with that kind of thinking is any aliens that had the technology to travel vast distances from one end of the galaxy to the other in a matter of minutes, hours, however long it would take, days. If you have that kind of technology, you don't need to even come to this planet.
No.
Because you could open up a wormhole, drop a couple of nukes or whatever would be the equivalent that would wipe out mankind, and you'd never even have to come here.
Well,
You'd
one of the
never even have
things
to look
that
at this.
Stephen Greer said that really stuck with me was these aliens that have this technology and this craft and the ability to
Right.
travel the way they do, either through dimensional wormholes or whatever, which is the only way, because just traveling at the speed of light, if they were coming from Andromeda as they propose,
Right.
it's going to take 1,000,000 years. So they're not traveling that way.
Yeah, no,
So they're
they're
coming
not.
against ways that we don't know. And that's I forgot completely what I was going to say, but oh yeah, that their technology to do that would be 500,000 to 1,000,000,000 years ahead of ours. That's believable.
How do you fight that? You don't.
You don't. If they wanted
It's
to
not
kill
like
us, they
this.
would do it.
Yeah, and like he said, like, see, I don't buy what he did say one thing that I don't necessarily agree with him on.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about like the radars and our guns, and we've shot a bunch of their craft down. I don't think so. I think anything that's crashed on this planet's probably been an accident.
And that may be.
I don't believe our government has the tech to actually take one of them down.
That one is kind of hard to believe, because when they show the video from the space shuttle, folks,
Yeah,
this one blew my mind. This is in the early 90s. There's a shot of video from the space shuttle that shows a craft moving in the distance. And if you watch, you see what appears to be a bright light or laser or a missile or something coming from Earth at that craft. And that craft
right.
immediately just boom, out of the way.
Done.
Okay, there's a lot of issues right there with everything. We're
It
shooting into
moved,
space.
and then the line comes up. Yeah, what
Yeah,
the hell did they shoot?
that's just it.
Like,
That
what
was
was
news
it,
to
a
me.
laser? What is a rocket? I couldn't tell. I've seen that video before. Maybe it's
That was
because
the
I
first time
watched
I'd
this
seen it.
before.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking, there's no way these guys, there's no way we have shot these things down. It's not like the conquistadors landing in South America.
Well, yeah.
You know, it's really not, because 90% of their body wasn't covered. I mean, they had the chest plates and they had the helmets, but those Indians were really good shots.
Yeah.
Those Aztecs, and they were outnumbered a lot. So it wouldn't be like that kind of technology. That technology was 100 years above the Aztecs at that point. Not that big a difference. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like going into a Spanish ship of the day with a gun that was made 100 years in the future. You know,
Yeah.
a six shooter. You know, you only have to,
It would be
six
amazing for
shots,
somebody to see.
take
Yeah.
12 shots. You know, you're taking people out left and right. So that's the difference in technology. The difference in this type of technology is Star Trek Enterprise to the space shuttle. Who do you think's going to win in a fight?
Well, it sure as hell ain't
You
the
know?
shuttle.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, that's a great point. That's a great
But
point.
that's my only thing that I can look at and think I disagree with that. I don't think they've shot anything down
No.
on
And
purpose. You know, it doesn't make sense to me.
it doesn't seem possible. It's, to me, it's like the as I call them, the gravy seals that these big fat people who think they're going to take on the government with their one rifle and a bag of
Yeah.
donuts. Guys, you are not going against our Marine Corps. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So you're going to die.
You're not going to be a little guerrilla fighter.
No, and you look ridiculous. Anyway.
It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I don't care what side of anything you're on. You are not taking out our military. You're not the Wolverines. I'm sorry.
I do believe in standing up against
Absolutely.
the dictatorial. I do believe in going French Revolution. I do believe in going French underground, and the underground that fought against the Nazis during World War II. I absolutely believe that. And I think that really hurt the Nazis a lot more than anybody knows.
Well,
I really do.
Here's what's interesting.
Because you're constantly digging. You're constantly digging at them.
And that's what this documentary proposes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need, his big thing is we don't need some government to allow us to contact the aliens.
Right.
We can do this on our own. And if we do it on our
Yeah.
own, we have control, we have power, we're unstoppable at that point. So in a way, it is a
Yeah.
revolution. So,
And at that point, you have an alien coming to you going, "Hey, take me to your leader." Hey, no. And let me tell you why I'm not going to take you to my
thing
leader.
is, they know anybody
Yeah,
that
well,
advanced can
yeah, they do.
see how backwards we are.
And I think an alien would need to hear that, though. And I think that's
It's part of
reading
what he,
into what we
yeah.
were just talking about, reading into what Greer's talking about and others in the show have talked about, is that type of logic from the aliens. We're not going to come and just help you.
No,
We need
they
a
need to
certain
see
amount
that
of
we're
people
ready.
on your planet. Yeah, we need a certain amount of people on your planet, or a certain amount of people in general, just to go, "Hey, we need help. These people are crazy. What can you do for us? I mean, what can we go with you? Can you put us on another planet?
That'd be
Whatever
awesome.
it's going to take. We don't want to be here anymore." I don't
Well,
know. I don't know what to say.
well, no,
But
it
I think
reminds
that's
me.
what you'd run into.
It reminds me of an episode of the last season of the Orville when they picked up somebody on a planet that was not advanced enough, and she got to see
Uh,
all the technology.
oh,
And
geez.
her question to Ed was, "Can't you just give us your duplicator or replicator?"
Right.
And he's
Right.
like, "We did at one point." And he shows the history of a planet of when they gave that technology to somebody who wasn't
Right.
ready. They monetized it, they capitalized it, they started wars over it, and just ended up
Mhm.
destroying the entire planet. He's like, "You're
That's
not
what would
ready.
happen.
You're not ready."
Uh,
And I think that's kind of what this documentary and Dr. Greer propose is, we need to let them know we're ready. And when they
Yeah.
know that we're really ready is when they reveal themselves. There's people who talk about having communication with these
Right.
beings. And we talked earlier about the guy who had his hearing healed. And there's a lot of people out there that claim this works. So I'm
Yeah.
curious.
When there's enough people, yeah, I think that's kind of what I was trying to say. When there's enough people that the aliens recognize, okay, there's enough people. There's enough people that we can go help them now.
Yeah.
And we'll keep it away from the people that just want to make money. We'll give
Hmm.
it, like Tesla, for example, had a way to make free energy. Well, what everybody didn't want was free energy. Well, it would have never been completely free, because you still had to build the equipment, you
Hmm.
still had to mine the steel, you still had to do certain
But
things
think of the
to build an
benefits. He
infrastructure,
tried to do
but
so much
nobody
for
looked at
humanity.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it still wasn't free. You would have
Yeah.
still had to pay something for it, but it wouldn't have been nearly what it is now.
We wouldn't be doing
You
it.
wouldn't have
One
had
of the
the
things,
destruction that you have now.
well, and that's one
Lithium
of the things.
mines, folks. Go look up
Well,
lithium mines.
exactly that. And that, even though the documentary doesn't talk about lithium mines, it talks
Right,
about how we get our energy from destruction, of digging into
right.
the earth and getting the coal, of taking nuclear fission just to heat water and make steam and turbine. We gather our energy in a very destructive way. There's got to be better ways.
To
So
get the exact same energy, there's got to be better
there's
ways.
got to
I
be.
don't know
And
what
I
they are. I
know,
mean,
yeah, I mean,
not that
we need to
smart.
try.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, no, what I'm saying is I like, people are talking about, like, "Oh, we're gonna go electric. That's clean." It's like, no,
oh,
it's
yeah,
not,
no.
dummy. You still need all the gasoline and the oil and the coal
Yeah,
to
so
make the
let's
electricity.
keep trying. Go back to the drawing board. Let's keep looking.
Yeah, and your
Yeah,
car is now using up, 4 times more pollutions than it was when you were just gassing it up. But
yeah,
nobody wants to talk about that. But that's the kind of thing.
yeah,
Electric car, good idea. Dead on arrival in
yeah.
reality. But nobody wants to look at the reality.
Hmm.
Those batteries catch on fire so quick. And boy, when they burn,
Yeah.
folks, they burn.
Yeah.
They burn. Like, you can't just throw water on them. There's no just throwing water on it. But that's the kind of thing that he covers without covering it directly, like you
Yeah,
said. It's really deep
it
in
is.
certain areas of this documentary, and I wanted to look at that CE5 thing. I looked at it and then I didn't get it. Um, but there is he's what is the name of the group that they did that it was, I forgot the name of the group that he's in, that that has developed a way
Yeah.
to try to communicate.
Yeah. I mean, they call the whole process CE5.
Five, but I thought the name, I thought he had
And he
a
might have,
company
and I'm
name
drawing a
or
blank.
yeah, I don't remember, but he talks about it a little bit in the movie, in the documentary. And to hear these people talk, not just Greer, but others talk about how to communicate, where to communicate, what kind of mindset to get into to communicate. I think there's really something here, and
I think so too.
I think this is an important watch for anybody who is interested in extraterrestrial life, whether it's all out there or just moving your hand through another dimension here. I don't know. I don't know how it all works.
I don't
I
think
don't know
any
how
of
it
us
works.
do. But here's the thing.
But I think it does work if you can get in the right mindset.
We don't know for sure what the right answer is or
Right.
what's there. But I think if you have an open mind, you can look at, people are trying different things in different ways. And that gives me hope that people actually want to reach
Yeah.
out. And I mean, of course, if they were here for evil reasons, they would have already done it. And one of the things I
Yeah.
found very fascinating is they talked about Hollywood. We talk a lot about manipulation. And one
Oh
was
yeah.
the suggestion
Propaganda.
that propaganda, being with all the alien movies where they're evil, and hey, look, I love a good sci-fi movie. They showed The Thing,
Yeah.
clips from that, Aliens, of course. And I think you would be a fool to think that every being out there in our galaxy is
That's right.
benevolent. I think you would be a damn
Right.
fool. There's going to be some evil ones. There's going to be some Klingons. There's going to be the Gorn.
There's going to be some humans.
There's going to be some humans. There are humans. I guarantee it, somewhere in our galaxy
Oh, yeah.
besides here.
Yeah.
And we're probably jerks about it. It's we don't have a good
Probably.
history. We're pretty young,
No.
In all fairness. Or are we?
We are too young of a civilization as far as spacefaring right now
Yeah.
to be allowed out of our own solar system.
Yeah.
Possibly to be allowed to any other planet other than the rover units that they've got on Mars.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just like to fight. We
Well,
just
and
like to go
that's
do
one of the
stupid shit.
yeah, and
We like
that's
to
one of
go
the
blow things up for no reason.
right. Right. And that's one of the things that he brings up is they want to keep us on a war footing. So they talk about developing a space force and always,
Right.
we have to dominate. Do we?
Yeah.
Why do we? And
Well,
damn, we got to stop that.
let's maybe we should look at it more like the Vulcans looked at it. Like go out and just, like Star Trek, the original series. We're going to go out and look.
Yeah.
Be armed and ready
Of course.
in case you're attacked.
Because you'd be a fool to think everybody's
Not
good.
exactly, but don't attack. That's not why you're there. You're there to say, "Hi, what's going on? We want to learn from you guys. What's up?"
Yeah.
Greens, dude.
Yeah. They probably got some better shit than we have.
Right? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Space weed? I'm good. I'm down.
Han Solo and the freaking Spice Kessel Run. Ah, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, yes, of course, we're going to have our drugs. So no, I found this to be a valuable documentary to watch if you have an open mind and an interest in all things alien or even metaphysical. If you are into ghosts and psychics and meditation and Eastern philosophies and study of that, you'll get something from this documentary. And if you're all into just aliens and want to know, you'll get something from this. If you're a government conspiracy theorist, and you're going to get something from this. This covers a lot, and it does it in such a way that everything to me made sense. And it's like, oh, wow, great.
But like I said, there was a 5-minute window where I'm like, oh Lord, where is he going with this?
I
And
know
then it all
exactly.
started making sense again. And then they talked about the alien invasion. And basically what Greer says is it's going to be a big fake invasion.
War of the world
to
style.
Try and get all the world, governments to be one government, basically so they can take all your rights away and control everything. But then he said, if I'm not mistaken, he mentions something that happens right after that. And it's going to be because so many people are trying to get a hold of aliens and trying to do the right thing, that the aliens will come and go. I'm not sure how soon after or right around that time, but at some point, the first, let me just put it this way, the first invasion's a fake. The second one is the real one. And the second time is when they show up and go, that's not us. It was your governments. It wasn't us. We had nothing to
Yeah.
do with that. And that's
One,
when everybody starts to look around again and grow. Maybe that's
right.
going to be the next birth of humanity, is
One of the
whenever we
things,
finally realize there's something bigger than us out there.
yeah, and
You know?
it's going to take quite a few of us. One of the things that I found compelling, at least I found fascinating, was when Greer was talking about he had a near death experience,
Yeah.
and he learned at that point that he's not going to ever die. He's always going to be there. So I was like, you can't scare me. And that's why he's just so bold
Yeah.
right to the government. You know, he
Right.
talks about a case of them snatching him up and threatening him. And he's like, you can't
Oh
scare
yeah,
me.
the general or colonel or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
We could
very
bury you in
interesting.
the desert. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
And that's the thing. You know what he's missing? He doesn't have the fear. As long as you're afraid, you can be controlled, and that's what they're going to go for. They're prime minister with the
Yeah.
movies. They're prime minister with the
Yes.
balloons. It's all the misinformation out there. Yeah.
My wife and I had watched this maybe a year ago. Maybe a year ago. I'm not sure when I started bothering you about it, but
It's been a
about
long
then
time.
probably. Yeah. And then the balloons thing happened. And I just looked over at her and she looked over at me and I just started laughing. I was like, he's right. Greer was absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
exactly what they're trying to do. I said,
Mhm.
listen to the verbiage that they're using in this: UFO, unidentified flying object. They knew exactly what it was. They
Yeah.
knew exactly what it was.
Nope.
That,
But they
2 minutes ago, you knew that it was a balloon. Now, all of a sudden, the next guy's sitting on your newscast and he's saying unidentified flying object. It's like, you guys know what's going on. Don't lie. Don't lie. So, folks, it's coming. Big lies, big lies. You thought you had big lies in the last 3 or 4 years. You ain't seen nothing yet, baby. These are going to be lies that a 5-year-old child would tell you. And you would look at the 5-year-old child and say, could you expect me to believe that? That's how big and bad these lies and blatant these lies are going to be. And some people are going to fall for them.
Of course they are. Of
All I can
course they
say
are.
is I'm not going to be one of them. I'm going to try really hard not to be one of them. I'm going to try 99% of myself to not be one of them. I may always have that 1% in my head going, what if this is real?
You right?
but but 99, yeah, I'm going to try really hard to not believe any of this crap anymore. I'm just
Yeah.
done. I'm
It's
done with the propaganda.
and that's what it
Just
is, honestly.
stop
And
lying.
I've been saying this for a while, and you have too. Is when we start as people focusing on our similarities versus our differences, we can make a
Yeah,
change. We're never going
yeah,
to agree 100% on things. We're never going to be the same, and that's okay. But can
right,
we
right.
recognize what we do share and what we do have in common and embrace that? It'll be better for everybody and the planet and
But
just in general.
but
But
people with power don't want to lose any
oh,
power.
they cannot lose
It's
it. They can't. It's like the
crazy.
multi-billionaire doesn't want to make 59 billion this year, so he's going to cut salaries so he, doesn't have to make
Yeah,
58 billion. So it's like,
exactly. Now we want 60 billion.
yeah.
But yeah, it's along those lines. And it's like, here's a small, very small example of what Scott just said. And this is how my head works. A week or two ago, we watched a movie, or we posted a movie called Who Killed Captain Alex on old ass movie reviews. Okay. We both wanted to hate this movie, but
God,
not
I
hate
wanted
it,
to.
but we both wanted something to make fun of. We both wanted to find something that we could ha 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 and shred, 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 and just be kind of vicious, mean little jerks like we normally are.
Yeah.
Um, but we watched it and we each found the commonality in that movie in the heart of IGG,
Mhm.
the guy who made it, Nabawana IGG. And that's our commonality. we saw that he wanted to make something fun. He just wanted to do something creative. That's it. That's my commonality with that guy. I've never been to Uganda. I have no idea
Yeah,
what language they speak in Uganda. How many different tribal languages they
I
speak
don't
there.
know.
I couldn't tell you how their government is set up.
Yeah, I'm
I
very
don't
ignorant
know
on
anything about it.
Uganda.
I
Yeah,
I know it's in the continent of Africa.
that's all I know.
Couldn't tell you whether it's north, south, east, or west. I know nothing else about it. But I saw that and I liked it because there's a commonality. It's what we had in common.
Hmm.
That's take from that what you will. It's a small thing, and I understand that, but it's something that I can try and compress. So anybody who's watching this is like, oh, you guys are all insane. That's what I'm talking about. You find what you have in common, not what you have in difference. Scott and I are a lot different people. We're both grumpy old guys, but we're
Yeah,
grumpy
that's
about
what
different
we're
things.
falling apart as we get older. So
Yeah, we
and
were talking about that.
you know,
I'm dying.
not to get political, but I am for just a
I'm
brief
trying
second.
not to go there,
Yeah,
other
but
than
I'm just going to
love the
get no.
document.
I'm not with us, but it was something I want to say. It was something John McCain had said when he was campaigning, and somebody was disparaging Barack Obama, and he stopped
Uh,
them. And I think
right,
this was McCain, and this something's telling me it might have been George W. But was we both want the same thing. We want a better place for our children. You know,
right.
so
Yeah,
I thought, well, there you go. You found the common ground. Everything else,
right.
nothing else matters. So now you go from there, and that's what I get out of watching stuff like this. Is like, it's like watching a
Exactly.
Christmas
Yeah,
movie. You want to be better.
yeah. That the speech that what's his name gives at the end of Scrooged. We
Hmm.
can be better. We can do this one more time. It's like it's just it's a good way to start. You may
Yeah,
not finish where you want to finish, but folks, you have to start. You
you
have to
do.
start somewhere.
You do. Cool. So,
All I
folks,
got.
if you like what you heard here and like our in depth discussions on the metaphysical and aliens and stuff, head over to Neverworld Podcast. Otherwise, stick around on Old Ass Movies and we will be reviewing some other movies and we will cross over from time to time with some other things. So, I thank you very much for joining us on this weird episode. Thank you and good night.